Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. Welcome to Bud Mouse. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting history. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story. Welcome to Wednesday. Take a moment to wish our Miss Angel a happy 21st birthday. She's legally old enough to drink, as you can see in our little short that I made her this morning. Also, things to remember as this is coming out late. I probably will not be. Well, I might be there. We'll see. Depends on what time we get it up. Please keep an eye on each other. Support each other, like, share, comment, all that other stuff. We have a race. I have chosen spiders today because one of Angel's favorite things is spiders. And we have races for spiders, so that's what we're going to do today. There's Cable, there's Generations, there's Tissue, there's Jerry, there's Jocelyn, there's Big Ben, Steve, Shadow, Hydra, Gloria, Sunrise, excuse me, Not Too Daily, Rishin, Jason, Stoney, Fun Food Stock, M&J, Rural, Zoll, Cruising is Fun, Easy, Super Dave, there's Enfield, Thorkin's coming in from the back, there's Tay Eats, Live in Love, Kenny and Debbie, Neo, oh look, there's Misha. Yeah, Miss Misha. Alright, this is Miss Misha, what I need to catch up on, because I am behind again. She's piano music on Sundays. So if you like hymns, piano music, check her out, make a suggestion. Thoughtful Thursdays is when she does a devotion. Those are very good and thought-provoking, so if you like devotions, good there. She also recently sort of prayed. We've done a couple of those, got another one coming up. And of course, she's got some shorts, mostly food related. And then, of course, a year ago or so, she had a live. So check her out. Religious teacher, or religious channel, cooking, decorating, gardening, all that other stuff. Wonderful lady, very supportive. Check her out. Enjoy the bit of history, like she's coming. All right. A bearded historian will tell you history bits, and we'll all pretend to pay attention. Now, remember, there may be a quiz, so you must pay at least a slight attention.
Otherwise, hire somebody to pay attention and take a nap. This works in college some days. Now, for today's topic, I will put up a disclaimer for the simple fact that it does deal with a religious topic, but at the same time, I do not endorse any specific religion, but at the same time, some things do sound interesting to me.
And it's important that we honor different cultures, different beliefs.
Yep.
We don't have to understand them. We don't have to believe in them. We just have to acknowledge them.
Yeah. Because like for right now here in America, there's three big ones that go on. There's Christmas for the Christians. There is what is the other fun one that they have? Kwanzaa for the African Americans. But the third one has been in the news a little bit more recently due to the advent and the start of the season of Hanukkah. Now, For those of you who are kind of in the dark on this, haha, candles, it's a Jewish holiday that commemorates the Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid Empire in 2nd century BC. Now, when the Maccabees successfully recovered the Jerusalem and the Second Temple, the whole story behind it, dates to about 167 to 141 BC, or before Common Era. What happened is that at the time, Greece, the Philistine Empire, not the Philistine, the Syrian Empire had managed to take control of the area around Jerusalem. They had occupied it, and there was a lot of problems with how the Greeks wanted things to be run. The stories basically come out of the 1st and 2nd Maccabees, describing in detail how the temple in Jerusalem was rededicated and the lighting of the menorah. Now, the books are not considered part of the canonized Masoretic text version of the Hebrew and Aramaic language Jewish Bible, used and accepted by normative rabbinical Judaism, and therefore modern Jews, as copied, edited, and distributed by a group of Jews known as the Masoretes between 7th and 10th centuries. However, the books of the Maccabees were among the Deuterocanonical books added to the Septuagint, a Greek language translation of the Hebrew Bible originally compiled in mid-3rd century before Common Era. The Roman Catholic and the Orthodox churches considered the books of the Maccabees as a canonical part of the Old Testament. Kind of a, this is part of our Bible, that's not part of your Bible. Now, the interesting part of it is that the 8-day rededication of the temple described in 1st Maccabees, although the miracle of the oil does not appear here, a story similar in character and older in date is one that was alluded to in the 2nd Maccabees, according to which the relighting of the altar fire by Nehemiah was due to a miracle which occurred on the 25th of Kislev, and which appears to be given as the reason for the selection of the same date for the rededication of the altar by Judah Maccabee. The above account of 1st Maccabees, as well as 2nd Maccabees, portrays the feast as a delayed observation of the 8-day feast of Booths, Sukkot. Similarly, the 2nd Maccabees explains the length of the feast as the manner of the feast of the Booths. Now, what's kind of wild, and the part of this that is interesting, revolves around the oil. The miracle that they speak of was that originally when they went to light these candles, there was only supposed to be enough oil for one day. And so each day they would light a single candle to do ceremony, and then 2nd day a second candle, 3rd day a third candle, 4th day, and so on. Through 8 days, they managed to make the oil last that long for ceremony. And it was also kind of interesting, I was reading, that the Greeks apparently had tainted the oil, thinking that, well, again, we're okay with you guys practicing your religion, but we are not fond of it. Of course, there were other things that were going on regarding the Syrian Empire, the fact that they tried to use the temple for false gods, fun stuff like that. Now, as the way the 25th of Kislev works, again, you're not going to find that in the, our Gregorian calendars. It starts on the 25th of Kislev in the Hebrew calendar, 8 days and 8 nights. Each night is marked by the lighting of the menorah, a 9-branched candelabrum containing spaces for 8 ceremonial candles plus 1 additional candle, the attendant, which is to be used to light the others. Now, aside from the sheshmash, 1 candle is lit the first night, 2 the second again, till all 8 are burning together on the final night. It's the only Jewish holiday that starts in one month, Kislev, and concludes in another, Tibet, on the Hebrew calendar. Now, common practices of the Hanukkah include certain Jewish prayers, indulging in Hanukkah music, playing the game of dreidel, which sometime I'm going to have to look that up, because it's a little spitty thing with Hebrew letters on it, and consuming of fried food and dairy products, such as latkes and safrigniot. Since the 1970s, the Shabbat movement with Hasidic Judaism has organized community-wide lightings of public menorahs in locales around the world. Interestingly enough, they do have one here in Rapid, down at the square.
Right.
And they also have one out at the base at Ellsworth. One of the captains asked for permission to build one, and I guess some of the pilots who are practicing Jewish people thought that was kind of a neat sight to, as they're coming back from their missions, arriving back at Ellsworth going, hey, I know that. Now, as it was originally instituted as a feast like the days of the festival of Sukkot, it does not entail the corresponding obligations and is therefore a relatively minor holiday in strictly religious terms. Nevertheless, Hanukkah has attained major cultural significance in the Western world and elsewhere, especially among secular Jews, as it often falls during the Christmas and holiday season. Among American Jews, the chronological proximity also contributed to the seasonal gift-giving practice. Now, Hanukkah derives from the Hebrew verb meaning to dedicate, because on Hanukkah the Maccabee Jews regained control of Jerusalem and rededicated the temple. Now, many homiletical explanations have been given for the name. The name can be broken down into several words. They rested on the 25th, referring to the fact that the Jews ceased fighting on the 25th day of Kislev, the day in which the holiday begins. Chinuch, which from the same root is the name for the Jewish education, emphasizing ethical training and discipline. And Hanukkah is also the Hebrew acronym for 8 candles, and the Hakla is a accordance to the house of Hillel. This is a reference to the disagreement, interestingly enough, between two rabbinical schools of thought, the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai, on the proper order in which to light the Hanukkah flames. Now, Shammai opined that it should be 8 candles on the first night, 7 on the second, and so down to the last night, because the miracle was greatest on the first day. Hillel would argue in favor of starting with 1 candle, and then lighting an additional one every night up to the 8th on the 8th day, because the miracle grew in greatness of each day. Jewish law would adopt the position of Hillel. Also to mention, in the Psalm 30, it is called Shir Hanukkah Habayit, the song of the dedication of the house, and it's traditionally recited on Hanukkah, the 25th, 25 of Kislev plus 5 of Torah, 30, which means the number of the song. Now, alternate spellings, and this is where people over here in America, we have such a fun time with spelling things, commonly refer to the word as written Hanukkah. Hanukkah. It's commonly it's transliterated in English as Hanukkah with the 2 Ks, or Hanukkah with a C in front. The spelling with the H is most common, and the preferred choice of Merriam-Webster, Collins English Dictionary, the Oxford Style Manual, and the style guides of the New York Times and the Guardian. The sound represented by the CH, similar to the Scottish pronunciation of lock, is not native to the English language, so those not familiar with the Hebrew pronunciation may pronounce it with an H. Furthermore, the letter Heth, which is the first letter of the Hebrew spelling, is pronounced differently in modern Hebrew. A voiceless uvular fricative from the classical Hebrew, a voiceless laryngic fricative, and neither of these sounds are unambiguously represented in the English spelling. However, the classic Hebrew sound is closer to the English H than the Scottish CH, and Hanukkah is more accurately represented in the spelling of the Hebrew alphabet. Moreover, the Kaf consonant is germinate in classical but not modern Hebrew. Adapting the classical Hebrew pronunciation with the germinate in pharyngeal Kaf can lead to the spelling Hanukkah, while adapting the modern Hebrew pronunciation with no germination, the uvular Heth, which leads to the spelling Hanukkah with the CH. It also drops the double K down to a single K near the end of the word. Now, in modern Hebrew, Hanukkah may also be called the Festival of Lights, based on a comment by Josephus in the Antiquities of the Jews, roughly translated, and from them on we celebrate this festival, and we call it lights. The first Hebrew translation of Antiquities used in 1864 Festival of Lamps, but the translation of Festival of Lights appeared by the end of the 19th century. The term Festival of Lights is also commonly used in English. Now, when I talk again about the early rabbinic sources, Megalith Tasnit in the 1st century contains a list of festive days on which fasting or eulogying, it's always a fun word sometimes, is forbidden. It specifies on the 25th of Kislev is Hanukkah of 8 days, and one is to not eulogize. The Scholion, of 9th to 10th century, then references the story of the rededication of the temple and the miracle of the cruse of oil. Now, the Mishra, late 2nd century, mentions Hanukkah in several places, but never describes its laws in detail and never mentions any aspect of the history behind it. To explain Mishra's lack of the systematic discussion of Hanukkah, Nissim ben Jacob postulated that information on the holiday was so commonplace that Mishnah felt no need to explain it. Modern scholar Revin Margolis suggests that the Mishnah was redacted after the Bar Kokhba revolt. Its editors were elected to include explicit discussion of the holiday, celebrating another relatively recent revolt against a foreign ruler for fear of antagonizing the Romans. Everybody loved the Romans back then.
Romans!
Now, the miracle of the one-day supply of oil, miraculously lasting 8 days, is described in the Talmud, committed to writing about 600 years after the events described in the Book of the Maccabees. The Talmud said that after the forces of Antiochus VII or IV had driven from the temple, the Maccabees discovered that almost all of their ritual olive oil had been profaned. They found only a single container that was still sealed by the high priest with enough oil to keep the menorah in the temple lit for a single day. They used this, yet it burned for 8 days, the time it took to have new oil pressed, made ready, and delivered. Now, the Talmud presents 3 options. 1, the law requires only 1 light each night per household. 2, a better practice is to light 1 light each night for each member of the household. Or 3, the most preferred practice is to vary the number of lights each night. Now, except in times of danger, the lights were to be placed outside one's door, on the opposite side of the mezuzah, or in the window closest to the street. Rashi, in note to the Shabbat 21b, says their purpose is to publicize the miracle. The blessings for Hanukkah lights are discussed in the Tractate Sukkah, page 46c. Megalith Antichris, probably composed in the 2nd century, concludes with these following words. After this, the sons of Israel went up to the temple and rebuilt its gates, and purified the temple from the dead bodies and from the defilement. And they sought after pure olive oil to light the lamps therewith, but could not find any except for 1 bowl which was sealed with the signet ring of the high priest from the days of Samuel the prophet, and they knew that it was pure. There was in it enough oil to light the lamps for 1 day, but the God of heaven, whose name dwells there, put therein his blessing, and they were able to light it from it 8 days. Therefore the sons of Hashmonal made this convent, and took upon themselves a solemn vow, they and the sons of Israel, all of them, to publish among the sons of Israel, that they might observe these 8 days of joy and honor, as the days of the feast written in the book of the law, even to light in them, so as to make known those who come after them that their God wrought for them salvation from heaven. In them it is not permitted to mourn, neither to decree a fast on those days, and anyone who has a vow to perform, let him perform it. The El-Hanissim prayer is recited on Hanukkah as an addition to the Andal prayer, which was formalized in the late 1st century. Al-Hanissim describes the history of the holiday as follows. In the days of Matthew ben Yonahan, high priest, the Hasmonean and his sons, when the evil Greek kingdom stood up against your people Israel, to cause them to forget your Torah and abandon the ways you desire, you, in your great mercy, stood up for them in the times of trouble. You fought their fight, you judged their judgment, you took their revenge. You delivered the mighty into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few, the impure into the hands of the pure, the evil into the hands of the righteous, the sinners into the hands of those engaged in your Torah. You made yourself a great and holy name in your world, and your people saved Israel. You made great redemption and salvation as this very day. And then your sons came to the inner chamber of your house and cleared your temple and purified your sanctuary and lit candles in your holy courtyards and established 8 days of Hanukkah for thanksgiving and praise to your holy name. Now, the Jewish historian Titus Flavius Josephus narrates in his book, Jewish Antiquities 12, how the victorious Judas Maccabeus ordered to lavish yearly 8-day festivities after rededicating the temple in Jerusalem that had been profaned by this Antichristus IV Epiphanes. Josephus does not say the festival was called Hanukkah, but rather the Festival of Lights. Now, Judas celebrated the festival of the restoration of sacrifices of the temple for 8 days, and omitted no such of pleasures therein, but he feasted them upon very rich and splendid sacrifices, and he honored God, and delighted them by hymns and psalms. Nay, they were so very glad at the revival of their customs when, after a long time of intermission, they unexpectedly had regained the freedom of their worship. They had made it a law for their prosperity that they should keep a festival on account of the restoration of their temple worship for 8 days. And from that time to this, we celebrate this festival and call it Lights. I suppose the reason was because this liberty beyond our hopes appeared to us, and that thence was the name given to that festival. Judas also rebuilt the walls around the city and reared towers of great height against the incursions of enemies and set guards therein. He also fortified the city of Bethsura that might serve as a citadel against any distresses that might come from our enemies. It's also mentioned in the New Testament. John 10:22-23 says, There came a festival of dedication in Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was in the temple court walking in Solomon's colonnade, the New International Version. The Greek noun used appeared in the neuter plural as the renewals or consecrations in ancient Greek. The same root appears in 2 Esdras 6:16 in the Septuagint to refer specifically to Hanukkah. The Greek word was chosen because the Hebrew word for consecration or dedication is Hanukkah, and the Amharic New Testament uses the Amharic word hatwada, a close synonym, which literally means which literally means renewal or to make new. Now, on to my favorite part of this whole mess, history.
None.
No.
Just kidding. Wait a minute, wasn't that all history? I wasn't paying attention, but wasn't that all history?
There's a little bits pieces, but
like ancient history?
Yeah, this is where we get into the backstory. This is the nitty gritty.
Wait, wasn't that the backstory?
No.
Damn it, I'm confused now.
I know.
I need a map!
Ancient modern history. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Now,
Still need a map.
First of all, we're going to read off a name and show of hands. Who knows who this guy was? Alexander the Great.
Wasn't he a... Wait, I had a thought.
I broke mommy.
My brain wasn't he a Roman general?
No.
He's a general of some sort, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, he went around and he was basically uniting the world. He tried to conquer the world. And he got close. He got
Don't we
all
all
the way.
want to conquer the world?
Usually they do because they get bored.
North
But
Pole.
after the death of Alexander the Great in 323, Judea became part of the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt until 200 BC, when King Antiochus III the Great of Syria defeated King Ptolemy V Epiphanes of Egypt in the Battle of Panuum. Judea then became part of the Seleucid Empire of Syria. Well, King Antiochus III, or the Great, wanted to conciliate his new Jewish subjects, guaranteed their right to live according to their ancestral customs, and to continue practicing their religion in the temple in Jerusalem. Well, the Seleucids, like the Ptolemies before them, held a surency over Judea, where they respected Jewish culture and protected the Jewish institutions. Well, this policy, of course, was reversed by Antiochus IV of Epiphanes, the son of his Antiochus III, seemingly after was either a dispute over leadership of the temple in Jerusalem and the office of high priest, or possibly a revolt which nature was lost to time after being crushed. Well, in 175 BC, Antiochus invaded Judea at the request of the sons of Tobias. The Tobias, who led the Hellenizing Jewish faction in Jerusalem, were expelled to Syria around 170 BC, when the high priest Onias and his pro-Egyptian faction wrested control from them. The exiled Tobias lobbied Antiochus to recapture Jerusalem. As Flavius Josephus relates, the king, being there to dispose beforehand, complied with them and came upon the Jews with a great army. And they took the city by force and slew a great multitude of those who favored Ptolemy, and sent out his soldiers to plunder them without mercy. He also spoiled the temple and put a stop to the constant practice of offering a daily sacrifice of expiation for 3 years and 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, when the second temple was looted and services stopped, Judaism was outlawed. In 167 BC, Antiochus ordered the altar to Zeus erected in the temple. He banned Brit Milah, circumcision, and ordered pigs to be sacrificed at the altar of the temple.
Well then.
You want to piss some people off? Here we go. Now, Antiochus' actions provoked a large-scale revolt.
What? Why?
No, I don't know. Making an altar to Zeus in the temple? What a concept. Antiochus' actions caused Matthias, a Jewish priest, and his 5 sons, Jochanan, Simeon, Eleazar, Jonathan, and Judah, to lead a rebellion against Antiochus. It started with Matthias killing first a Jew who wanted to comply with Antiochus' order to sacrifice to Zeus, and then a Greek official who was to enforce the government's behest. Judah became known as Yehuda HaMaccabi, Judah the Hammer, and by 166 BC, Matthias had died, and Judah took his place as leader. By 164, the Jewish revolt against the Seleucid monarchy was successful. The temple was liberated and rededicated. The festival of Hanukkah was instituted to celebrate this event. Judah ordered the temple to be cleansed and a new altar to be built in the place of the polluted one, and new holy vessels to be made. According to the Talmud, for when the Greeks entered the sanctuary, they defiled all the oils therein, and when the Hasmonean dynasty prevailed against and defeated them, they made search and found only 1 cruse of oil, which lay with the seal of the Kohen Gadol, high priest, but which contained sufficient oil for only 1 day's lighting only. Yet a miracle was wrought therein, and they lit therewith for 8 days. The following year, these were appointed a festival with the recital of Halal and Thanksgiving. It's found in Shabbat 21b. Now, tertiary sources for this Jewish tradition make a reference to this account. Maimonides in the 12th century described Hanukkah as follows: when on the 25th of Kislev the Jews had emerged victorious over their foes and destroyed them, they re-entered the temple, where they found only 1 jar of pure oil, enough to be lit for only a single day. Yet they used it for lighting the required set of lamps for 8 days, until they managed to press olives and produce pure oil. Because of this, the sages of that generation ruled that the 8 days, beginning with the 25th of Kislev, should be observed as days of rejoicing and praising of the Lord. Lamps are lit in the evening over the doors of the homes on each of the 8 nights, so to display this miracle. The days are called Hanukkah when it's forbidden to lament or to fast, just as it is on the days of Purim. Lighting the lamps during the 8 days of Hanukkah is a religious duty imposed by the sages. Now, some scholars, modern, following the account of the second Maccabees, observe that the king was intervening in the internal civil war between the Maccabean Jews and the Hellenized Jews in Jerusalem. These competed violently over who would be the high priest, with traditionalists with the Hebrew or Aramaic names like Onias contesting with the Hellenized high priest with Greek names like Jason and Menelaus. In particular, Jason's Hellenistic reforms would prove to become the deciding factor, leading to eventual conflict within the ranks of Judaism. Other authors point to the possible socio-economic reasons in addition to the religious reasons behind the civil war. With what began in the respects of a civil war escalated when the Hellenistic kingdom of Syria sided with the Hellenizing Jews in their conflict with the traditionalists. As the conflict escalated, Antiochus took the side of the Hellenizers by prohibiting the religious practices the traditionalists had rallied around. Yeah, let's cut them off and really tick them off. This would explain why the king, in a total departure from the Seleucid practices in all other places and times, banned a traditional religion. Now, the miracle of the oil is widely regarded as a legend, and its authenticity has been questioned since the Middle Ages. However, given the famous question Joseph Caro posed concerning why Hanukkah is celebrated for 8 days when the miracle was only for 7 days, since there was enough oil for 1 day, it was clear that writing in the 16th century CE had believed it to be a historical event. The belief had been adopted by most of Orthodox Judaism as much as Caro's Sultan Aruch is the main code of Jewish law. This fellow was alive from 1488 to 1575, Joseph Carroll. Now, going through the timeline period of Hasmonean Judean history, it all started back in 198, and I remember these numbers go down,
What?
hit 0, spend a couple of years, and then start going back up into the AD. Now, armies of the Seleucid king, Antiochus III, Ptolemy V from Judea and Samaria. 175, Antiochus ascends to the Seleucid throne. In 168, under Antiochus IV, the Second Temple is looted, Jews are massacred, and the Jewish religion practices are suppressed. In 167, Antiochus orders an altar traditionally dedicated to Zeus erected in the temple. Matthias and his 5 sons, John, Simeon, Elzar, Jonathan, and Judah, launch a revolt. Judah becomes known as the Judah Maccabee, Judah the Hammer. 166 to 164, Matthias dies. Judah Maccabee assumes leadership and leads a successful campaigns against Seleucid forces. If anybody's interested, there's a heck of a lot of information about how they actually fought against the Seleucid Empire, and it was actually very brilliant. Now,
Now, why would anybody be interested in that?
I don't know. Military history. Yay!
No. How do you?
164, the rebels would recover Jerusalem and recapture the Second Temple, which is then liberated and rededicated. In 160 to 143 BC, after Judah Maccabee's death at the Battle of Elasa, Jonathan Ephius leads the Hasmoneans, restores the strength, secures recognition from rival Seleucid claimants, and is appointed high priest in 152 BC. He expands Jewish autonomy and territory before being captured and executed by Datonis Tryphon. In 142, effective independence of Hasmonean and Judea under Simon Thassi, the Seleucids recognized Jewish autonomy while maintaining nominal overlordship acknowledged by Hasmoneans. Jewish self-rule would continue until the Roman intervention in 63 BC. In 139, the Roman Senate recognizes Jewish autonomy through the Treaty of Friendship and Alliance. Never a good thing when the Romans want to side with you.
What?
Antiochus the Seventh Sidonians besieged Jerusalem. Under John Hyrcanus, Judea temporarily accepts temporary Seleucid suzerainty while retaining internal and religious autonomy. In 129 BC, Antonius VII dies. John Hyrcanus casts off Seleucid rule and begins rapid territorial expansion. This continues under Judah Aristobulus and Alexander Danius, who combined the title of king with the high priesthood. Judea conquers Samaria, Galilee, Emania, and parts of Transjordan, incorporating the Idumean population, which is converted to Judaism, possibly by coercion. In 96 BC, a prolonged civil war erupts between Alexander Danius, aligned with the Sassanids and the Pharisaic components. In 85 to 82, consolidation of the Hasmonean kingdom in territories east of the Jordan River. 76 to 67, the reign of Salome Alexandra, marked by internal stability and the Pharisees dominate government. Her death in 67 triggers a succession struggle between the sons, Hyrcanus II and Aristobulus II, over Hasmonean throne. In 63, the Hasmonean Jewish kingdom ends after Aristobulus and Hyrcanus appeal to the Roman Republic for intervention. The Roman general Pompey captures Jerusalem after a siege. Thousands of Jews are reportedly killed, including priests at the temple altar, and Judea becomes a Roman client state with Hyrcanus II serving as a vassal leader. So basically that's where Rome got to step in, become a controlling power of the Judean Jewish people.
They did such a good job.
The big thing though that I think is kind of interesting, and when they talk about the menorah, the candles and everything, is throughout all of history where these Jewish folk wound up being parted out to. They wound up in Europe, they wound up in America, they wound up in Africa, they wound up in Russia, in different places in the Far East, is that they still took that religious background with them. Every year they would celebrate Hanukkah, and they would always they would have their customs, and it was like they kept a piece of Jerusalem with them. And so a lot of these Jewish folks, they look at Hanukkah kind of like their Independence Day, which is understandable. But so it basically goes for an 8-day period. Started on the 16th or the 15th, if I remember right, and it'll proceed for 8 days. But this has been a little tap into the history and the historical parts of Hanukkah and its holiday celebration. Thanks for listening, and we will give you guys other flip bits for either tomorrow or next week. Have a good one.
Tomorrow or next week?
Well, the girl has a birthday because she's turned historical.
Is she old enough to be qualified as historical?
Hysterical, baby.